spin, right? Always trying to fix what just happened. Or it can be done with a photo composition, right? So I'm going to show you a couple on the slides here of, again, Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston standing next to each other, all happy, and underneath that spin headline is, "We're going to get a baby," or whatever. And you're like, what? But right? And then here I'm all at the grocery store opening going, what are they talking about? I totally sucked into it. Just kind of depends, right? Where is your heart set and your mindset, and what are you going to get dragged into? And also it could be, two people shaking hands all of a sudden. All these people are, what's the word? They're amicable again. Politicians do this too. So handshakes nowadays don't mean the same as what they used to. Okay. All right, we're going to move on. So I've got a couple of covers here for magazines. Us Magazine is really notorious for those spin headlines and the framing, and then, you know what I mean? So we've got one of Britney Spears after shaving her head. Relatable. Relatable. I remember watching, I think it was in 2008, actually, when this went down. I'm all, girl, I feel ya. I feel it more now than I did then. So we got Britney Spears and remember the, two people amicably standing next to each other. We got Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. And sometimes if you pay attention, you'll notice that they have cut photos and placed them next to each other and make it look like the two are standing next to each other. Okay. Next we got Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston. Let's have a baby. What? It's crazy. And then, also if you look in that same one, you've got these two people. It is Trump's Don Jr., Trump's son, and Vanessa, his wife, and they've both got nasty looks on their faces. It's just them walking down the street. You get sun in your eyes. You get the glare look, kind of stink eye. And then they put those two together with that lead line. There you go. Also, think about who the news is trying to appeal to. So there's two types of Foxes, Fox Latino and then regular Fox. And the Fox Latino line versus the Fox News Channel are two different ones, but it's the same story. And the first one says, in a rare move, the university grants $22,000 for a scholarship to undocumented students. Language, undocumented, right? And that's very nice. That's an undocumented, that's a better term versus the next one where it says money for illegals, right? So see, it's the way in which we use language, same damn thing, but a different connotation depending on who's watching and who's presenting. Newsweek, we got Mitt Romney on one side and we have Obama on another. Mitt Romney looks kind of skeezy with his laugh, and the top headline is "The Wimp Factor. He's just too insecure to be president?" ? Okay. And the one next to it is Obama. Why are Obama critics so dumb? Right? So you see these fallacious, statements that they're using here. And then the next slide, we've got Obama with a cranky face. And again, a new, a new headline on there to kind of give you, again, a connotation, a feeling. Okay. Remember denotation and connotation. And the last one, this is what we're doing. We're using words to create a feeling. Okay, so the question here is news reporting fair and unbiased? Of course not. Okay, and why or why not? Why is that the case? And again, we go back to sensationalism, we go back to the money, we go back to who's paying. Okay, my question for you is, what happened in 1987? Pause, go back and read it, come back. Okay. So the fairness doctrine is actually a former U.S. policy by which broadcasters must allow equal airtime for all sides of the issue. I think some of you already know where this is going. So is this a fair and just move? And you have to go, well, of course, you're given equal time to both. But what did we just talk about? Ways in which, while you may give adequate time, how are you reacting? And who are the guests that you're bringing on to give equal time to? Okay, no matter what, as a newscaster, as a politician, as anyone who's out there trying to create a voice, there's going to be manipulation. This is just kind of how the game goes. We're humans. This is what we want to do because we want you to see our side. And how are we going to get you to see our side? We're going to play a game. Okay, so with this policy in place. The idea was that they were going to give equality, right? But there is not ever going to be equality. That's just the truth, okay? We just have to be critical thinkers. So one of the statements in regards to this was on page 333, where this policy in place, the public relies, instead on the judgment of the broadcast journalist and its own reasoning, the ability to sort one-sided distorted coverage of an issue. So the issue here is relying too much on the journalist to give us the true story. And in a lot of sense they do. There are some very good journalists out there who are very true to the story. But unfortunately, sometimes with money and television, the media needs the money. And so they lean towards certain people and certain views in order to keep going. So it's just not going to be equal. People watch Fox News is because they know what they're going to get from Fox. They know what they're going to get from CNN. And unfortunately, they're just on, unequal sides of the spectrum. There's very few that are right down that middle. You just have to be a very good critical thinker to be able to get past that and understand and see where the manipulation is, okay? And do your own research. Go back and check the facts. Always check the facts. The biggest fallacy that you can fall into is the appeal to authority. We didn't cover that, but the idea is that because they have authority, we assume that everything they say is true and correct. And we cannot fall back on that. It is always important to go back and do research, no matter who it is and what it is. Even Fauci, who right now is trying to give us a lot of good information, doing his best, still has influence from the president and other factors. It's really good to check what are all people saying within that same type of research. That's just kind of important. We are human. We are, born of error sometimes. So it's just important to always double check. So anyway, the idea behind this fairness doctrine is that the hope was to give everyone fair airtime. But with that, I think it also gives too much power to the journalists, and I think they realized that and they had to pull back from that. Because if we rely too much on people and not on ourselves and our own abilities to critically think, shit kind of falls apart. And then before you know it, again, we're appealing to the fallacy of authority and going, well, it's the news. Of course it's good. It's going to give me all the correct information. And I don't like to use that word fake news. I think that's a bullshit statement. Excuse my language. I prefer to say, just do your research. Okay. Don't just assume all news is fake. Just go through and use your common sense and your abilities to find information to define whether or not something is true or untrue. Okay. So the assumption here with this doctrine thing is that the public will be manipulated. And the hope is that majority of us as human beings are critical thinkers. I don't see that very often. I see oftentimes people want to be told the answer. They don't want to find the answer. So as a student, rather than hoping that, wholly I'm just going to give you all the answers, it's important to find the answers. That's the point of this class. And oddly enough, I hate to say that I do not like that we are online, but I do like now that I'm seeing more students leaning towards finding the answer rather than just expecting and waiting for it. So hopefully these lectures are helping you, because it takes me a lot of time to prep and get ready for them. But at the same time, listening, following, reading, doing more reading. And the more you do that, the more you can actually open up and go, oh shit, that's not right. Again, what we talk about, throwing rice at weddings, at some point someone's like, that can't be right. Questioning it and then finding the truth. That's what my hope is for this class. Okay. So next slide. Does the media create news or reflect news? This is a really, really good question. Are we creating news, again, sensationalism, or are we reflecting what's really happening? And there are times where obviously it is both. Sometimes, unfortunately, it seems to be more of a create than a reflect. So this is more and more debated, okay? So some people have complained during the election that because it got the highest ratings, other Republican candidates did not receive the same airtime, especially during debates, as Trump did, who was constantly in the public eye. Question for you. What Republicans are running against Trump? Okay, let me go back. How many Republicans were running against Trump? I mean, practically nobody. There were three. They've already dropped out, done. This is why you haven't seen a Republican debate. Okay, so Trump's already in. Trump's in. Trump will probably win because we're going through a pandemic. People are afraid to change. They're just going to keep what's new. That's fine. In fact, the Republicans know this so well. They're like, we're not even going to like go against him and what's the word? We don't want to run against him and bring down, already what he's got going on. Just let it be, let Trump do Trump. But if you look and see how many people ran for the Democratic Party, it is mind-blowing. There were, I'm counting the list, I think it was over 15 to 20 different people who were running for the Democratic presidential nomination. And then remember all those, there was like 5 that dropped out, and then it was Sanders and Biden, and now it's just Biden. So it's Biden and Trump. All right, so history shows, and this is my prediction. Hey, it's recorded. Let's see if this is true. That a lot of times, especially during times like this, again, 9/11, we had Bush reelected. We have a pandemic. Trump will probably be reelected, no matter what your feelings are, no matter what he could probably do the worst possible thing you could ever imagine. He's probably still going to be reelected because we are afraid of change right now because of all the change that's happening. Okay, so keep that in mind. Still go vote. Make sure you vote. I don't care who you vote for, but make sure you vote. Really do a lot of research as we move forward, a lot of research, because we may not be able to go in to vote. We might have to do mail-in ballots, and this is where things are going to start getting scary. Okay, so just make sure you're out there paying attention as best you can. It's all about your future. Okay. Anyway, I say these things because this is where, in my lifetime, I've seen history consistently repeat itself. And it's just human nature. As all of this is human nature. This has been going on forever and ever. The Bible has even been manipulated, right? We can talk about that some other time, right? But this is exactly where this is human nature. This is ways in which we want to either feel safe or in control, or fear of losing control. Okay, so here we're going back to fuzzy words. Our weasel words, we talked about those in chapter 7, that create an appealing claim or an impression without specifically defining a concrete meaning or for the words or phrases. Remember, concrete is, it's the thing, I can touch it, taste it, feel it, it exists. Versus, fuzzy words where it's like love and, very abstract meanings that don't really have anything concrete to it. So vague declarations are used in advertisements all the time. You've got a friend in the diamond business. What does that even mean? What kind of friend? Okay. And we'll leave the light on for you. Motel 6. Okay. And then words like crisp, full-bodied, and you're worth it. Fuzzy words. They're there, but what do they really mean? They are promises. They promise nothing, but it still sounds appealing, right? I'm promising you stuff, but I'm not promising you anything, but it sounds appealing. Okay. Product placement, again, remember that difference between product placement and advertisements. Product placement, and I'm going to show you a couple slides. I love finding product placement in anything I watch on television. I watch what's it called, Hometown on HGTV, and they have like a Gorilla Glue, and it's right there. And again, they do that framing where here's the Gorilla Glue right there, and they're back over here sawing stuff, but what's right in front? The glue. Okay, so and you might not see it like, ooh, that's a really cool shot, but what they're doing is manipulating you to look at that glue, and then subconsciously it's in there, so the next time you go to the store you go, oh, Gorilla Glue, and weirdly enough almost mindlessly grab it and walk out, because remember we talked about before in chapter 7 where a lot of times we use it's Pepsi. We go for Pepsi rather than just cola, right? So we have these things in our head that we feel safe because we've seen it. So it must be true. It must work. Okay. All right. So product placement is the practice of integrating and embedding products either in films or TV shows or programs and other media just to reach out. Okay. You see it everywhere. I'm trying to think if I have anything here where there might be a product placement behind me. So this relax, what's it called? Exhale, inhale, exhale. that right there could very easily be a product placement. This thing right here and that thing right there. In TV shows, what they do is they put it behind you to hopefully get you to go, ooh, and without realizing it has kind of subconsciously gotten into your brain, and you see it. So the next time you go shopping, there it is. So product placement is brilliant. You see it everywhere. In fact, I'm going to show you a couple examples. So I love Seinfeld. And sometimes what they'll do is Seinfeld won't have a product placement, but they'll have something where they've changed the wording in it, whether it's on a cereal box or on like the back of a wall. Instead of Coke, they'll rewrite it, but it says cola, but it's in the same red and white, right? Okay, so with the Seinfeld, Minute Maid was obviously a product placement. So was Sunlight behind them. Again, things are always kind of turned just enough for you to see it. Okay. In the movie Big, you've got Tom Hanks here right in front of a Pepsi machine. In Friends, they've actually got Ross holding a can of Coca-Cola. And keep in mind, a lot of times the reasons why products don't change, when you see their what do you call it, their labels and stuff, they don't change because people will always recognize it. Starbucks, in fact, they don't even have the word Starbucks under the label anymore because you don't need it. You see that sign, you see the siren and their little tails and whatever, you instantly see that and go, oh, Starbucks. And it's ingrained in your brain to the point where you don't even have to know what you just see that sign and go, ooh, I want coffee. Right? Same thing with Coca-Cola. It's that red and white. You already know what it is without even having to see the words. Okay. So in Castaway, FedEx was a huge one. Remember, he was a FedEx worker. I think he was the pilot. Forgive me, it's been a while. And then when it crashes, there's FedEx boxes everywhere. So Back to the Future 2, Pepsi was a huge funder for that. And it's funny because Back to the Future 2, when you watch it again, you're like, ooh, let's go back to the Future 1. Which in Back to the Future 1, Nike was a big one. Calvin Klein's was a big one. Those are just multiple ones. Anyway, they're just shows and things that I've seen recently that I was like, ooh, I have to explain it to my students. So, okay, so the Gestalt principle. All right, this is really important too because the principle states that our minds strive toward congruence, okay, and completion of information. So we always want to finish the statement, finish the question, finish the thing. Okay, we're constantly trying to fix things in our mind, and so that things make sense and that things are finished. So if a message strikes us as incomplete, we'll find the missing details ourselves. We'll try and figure out a way to fill in said blank. So number one, the first way, there's two different ways in which this Gestalt principle works. So questions are slogans that the consumer is taught to answer. Okay. Again, just like those cans of Coke or that little label of Starbucks, you can take those names out, but look at it and it has been ingrained in our brains. The McDonald's arch, we already know what these things are because we have been, it's been put into our brains so often that we don't even need to know what the word is. We can feel it. We see it. We go, oh, that's McDonald's. Oh, that's Coke. Oh, that's Starbucks or, whatever. So also, dun 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 dun, right? Okay, that was a terrible example of McDonald's, but you can hear it in your head and you hear that little jingle and you go, oh, instantly I think of McDonald's. So the book is a really good example of like cigarettes. I have been trying to rack my brain for an example of jingles. I think Lucky Charms does one. What are some others? There's probably tons. They're so ingrained in my brain, I can't think about it. But when we hear it, oh, she's gone to Jared, right? These little jingles and things where if you were to take one of those pieces out, you would still be able to finish it. Every kiss begins with K, right? So you have these in your head and you go, oh yeah. Every time you hear that, you think of the product. So if you hear it long enough and you take certain pieces out, our bodies and our minds want to create, and finish that sentence. Okay, and that's how jingles work. Also, they like to beg the question that just begs to be answered. That's a great way of remembering begging the question, a question that begs to be answered. So sometimes they'll ask questions of you and you'll like have an urge to respond like, wouldn't you love to have this in your house? Or why wouldn't you have this in your house? And you're like, well, because, and you catch yourself answering said question. Okay. And you're like, well, why don't I have that in my house? I want that. That's what we do. All right. With that, again, the book gives really good examples. Go to it. Number 2, images that don't make sense. We'll see a thing and we'll go, that's weird, but it invites us in. And sometimes we have to go back. Have you ever rewound and rewatched a commercial? Because you're like, what the fuck? I have done that like multiple times. I'm like, what the heck is that? And then it catches us, and then we're stuck, and we've watched it, and now it's in our head. So a lot of times they'll do that thing where, what's wrong with this picture? Okay, we'll look at something and go, that's weird. Something's changed, which is okay. So labels will either stay the same or they'll change, and they change to catch your attention. So it's not to say the product is losing sales, but sometimes they're trying to create more sales. So they'll change it, new label, new something, but it's the same product, or, right? They use that word new to kind of get you. My favorite, and I have a link on here, Old Spice commercials. My God, when those first came out, I was like, this is brilliant. This is so ridiculous. It's brilliant. And you kept watching it, and you were just so like, maybe not you, but for me, the weirder the better. You're weird. I'm just like in it. I'm like, oh man, tell me more. And so with these Old Spice commercials, think about the guy on the horse and this and that. And that's how, if you hadn't heard of Old Spice previous to these commercials, you heard about it now because it was so unique and so out there. And notice commercials do this so much more now than they ever have before. Commercials used to be very set in certain ways, certain jingles, certain things that we were kind of used to and what we expected of commercials. Well, now they're just out there, and that's exactly what they try and do, is fill in that blank to keep you interested. Okay, so I don't know if it's the new way of who we are as humans, if it's, I don't know, but I do notice I've seen that a lot in commercials lately. So keep an eye out, because you're going to see different ways people will change to get your attention and to hold you there. All right, because it's working. That's just the truth. Okay, subliminal persuasion. All right, a lot of you have probably heard, oh, this subliminal messages and all this stuff. The truth is, we don't really know. There's no truth that I have yet to see in research actually prove that subliminal messaging works. And maybe that's because it's subliminal. This is tough. I've actually wondered, is it true? Is it really working? I don't know. You find research, let me know. But so far, subliminal messages here is information meant to affect the people on an unconscious level, some of which cannot be detected with the conscious mind. That right there, that's that line, can't be detected with the conscious mind. That's the subliminal part. That's that underlying, can we really research that? Regardless of the training, right? So however much you've been trained, you cannot find, it can't be detected. So the existence and effectiveness of the latter form of subliminal persuasion remains under dispute. So the undetected part, we're kind of like, well, but if we go back to all the other stuff, the actual things that we're seeing, how subliminally they are affecting us in a way, yeah, kind of. So media uses subliminal persuasion, fuzzy words, the Gestalt principle, eye tracking, you name it, we got it, right? Neuromarketing and other tricks to manipulate you as voters and consumers.